city of Charlotte decided to make a mandate for all private sector employers in the Charlotte area, which is 300 square miles and 300 square miles and 1 million people, that all the employers with public access facilities would have to conform to their definition of who can and cannot go to the restrooms. And we thought that was government overreach. This actually started in Houston, Texas about 7 months ago, when they had a referendum on this issue of bathroom rules for the private sector, and the voters of Houston, Texas voted it down by 61%. And by the way, the NCAA was played there, the Final Four. There's no boycotts, no nothing, but I think part of that is a Democratic mayor who happens to be gay, and they left it alone, but they came to North Carolina with a national agenda, and it's become one, sadly.
Well, I've had gay people call this show who are on your side, who think this is ridiculous, and it is ridiculous. And
this is actually not a gay and lesbian issue.
No, it's not. You're right.
This is, and yet the other side. In fact, I watched CBS News tonight. It was just obscene the way they smeared my state. And
Governor, nobody
really
watches.
Gender identity and gender expression.
Governor, and, nobody watches CBS News anymore.
Well, enough do that. Listen, I'm going to do everything I can to protect my state. But sadly, this rule now is, which impacts the privacy, the expectation of privacy that individuals have, families and men and women and boys and girls in a highway rest stop or in a university locker room. They expect the people that come in there to be the people of their gender. And if they hear someone else in the most private of places, there's a feeling of insecurity. And I just can't believe we're talking about this. You know how the liberals used to complain about the conservatives of get out of our bedrooms?
There you go.
Well, now it's the liberals who want to get into our bathrooms and our locker rooms and our shower facilities. And, I'm telling them to get out.
Governor,
private facility where we have an expectation of privacy, but this is now, according to the Civil Rights Division, this is going to apply to every employer with over 15 people in the United States of America and every university in the United States of America. So this is not just a North Carolina issue. It just so happens the Civil Rights Division is going after North Carolina.
Governor, the Loretta Lynch, I want to play something for you. Very briefly. You haven't had dinner yet, have you? This may upset your stomach. But I want to play this for you.
Yeah.
All right. Let us get cut 16, Mr. Producer. Go ahead.
And let us reflect on the obvious but often neglected lesson that state-sanctioned discrimination never looks good and never works in hindsight. It was not so very long ago that states, including North Carolina, had other signs above restrooms, water fountains, and on public accommodations.
Let's stop it. Do you have signs, like men's room and ladies' room? Is there something wrong with that?
No, there isn't anything wrong with it. And what her remarks were offensive. By the way, she grew up in North Carolina, in Durham, and I think even her church is in favor of this. The church that she grew up in has no problem with what we're doing, and that's someone had told me that recently, but it was offensive. My chief of staff, his father happens to be a civil rights pioneer in North Carolina, and when my chief of staff saw her say this, I could hear, he went, "Don't go there. Don't go there." There's absolutely no relevance between the issue of civil rights for African Americans, which went through a tremendous struggle, and the issue of how do we determine the gender of a person going into our public showers or public restrooms or public locker rooms. And for her to pull that card out means her legal argument is pretty weak, but it's offensive to my state, and it's offensive to me.
Do you think that all these people, these government officials, these high and mighty officials in Washington, D.C., do you think the females use the ladies' room and the guys use the men's room?
Yeah, I do, although that may change down the road. Because to be politically correct now and to satisfy Big Brother, I think you're going to start seeing multi-use bathrooms consolidated. I think it's going to be the new thing, whether we want to or not. And frankly, when I talk to women and myself, I don't want to share a stall with someone next to me. I have no desire to do that. A person of the opposite gender. It's we're talking about something that's so private and so personal. I'm embarrassed to have to talk about this issue.
So I have my own view of what's driving this, and I've talked about it on this program. What do you think? What's right? Is this just another step for the federal government to push people around and control their lives and tell them what to do?
This is actually coming from a group called the Human Rights Campaign, which is, I think, more powerful than the NRA, and they're one of the best-kept secrets in our nation. They have about a $32 million a year penalty budget. The head of it actually came to the governor's office about 5 weeks ago, and he told me exactly what he's going to do. He said, I'm going to make North Carolina the epicenter of transgender rights, and once I deal with North Carolina, I'll move to the rest of the nation. But I think it's going much quicker than you ever imagined, because with the Obama administration now interpreting law, their job is not to interpret law, their job is to enforce law, but they've changed the definition of sex to include not just sexual orientation, but also include gender identity, which is not defined anywhere. I got to put a little blame on the U.S. Congress, including our Republicans. Sooner or later, they got to revisit the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And but they don't want to get near this either, because they're afraid of Big Brother. They're afraid of pushback and boycotts and Bruce Springsteen.
Is he transgendering now too?
No, Bruce, who I really like. I had 3 or 4 of his albums.
What's with you, governors and Bruce? I can't stand that guy.
I actually like some of his music, but he boycotted North Carolina. He canceled a concert 3 days before the concert. 15,000 people were left kind of nowhere to go, because he's taken a stand for gender identity bathrooms.
Really?
And so is Pearl Jam.
Very courageous.
And all they're doing is costing hardworking men and women, the parking lot attendants, the people, the charities that work the Coke machines and popcorn stands. All he did was punish them while he got to spend another night in his mansion somewhere in New Jersey or Florida or both. And that's stupid. I mean, that's a ridiculous boycott. I remember when the rock stars used to boycott for the Vietnam War. Now that's something, but for bathrooms, this is quite unique.
Governor, let me ask you something.
I'm worried about my state, because I don't want people to lose their jobs.
No.
Over this political this thought police. And if you speak against the thought police of Big Brother, you're labeled a bigot, which is extremely unfair to my state and to me, frankly. It's offensive, because I don't believe in discrimination. I just believe in common sense.
Let me ask you something. Honestly, I didn't know a lot about you. You really are. I like you. I like the way you talk. I like how straightforward you are. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I was born in Columbus, Ohio. I moved to North Carolina when I was 9 years old. My dad was an engineer. My mom was a nurse. And I'm married for 28 years. I was mayor of Charlotte, where this mess started a few months ago. I was mayor of Charlotte for 14 years. And I also worked for the private sector for 29 years. I was a part-time politician as mayor for 14 years. And then I ran for governor in 2008, lost the closest election for governor, went back to the private sector. And like the Godfather 3, it brought me back in, and I was fortunate enough to win governor. I'm in my 4th year as governor. I'm up for re-election, which might have something to do with this targeting North Carolina. What most people don't realize, North Carolina is the 9th most populous state in the United States of America. We also have the fastest growing economy in the last 3 years since I came in as governor, and I'm very, very proud of that. So the Democrats have to change the subject of the economic success, and what better way to do that than to call someone a bigot or...
Yeah, but you know what, Governor? This issue, to call somebody a bigot, I think this is going to backfire. I don't care what your political stripes are or anything else. People are looking at this and they're saying, you know what, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable with my children going into bathrooms like this. And this is nuts. This has nothing to do with Selma, Alabama or anything else. This is crazy left-wing kook stuff.
You saw the Attorney General make that connection. And the national media will play that, and it's very offensive to me, which I can take. I got thick skin, but I don't like to see our state smeared and people lose their jobs or companies intimidated not to come here. And PayPal canceled a 450 person call center they were having in Charlotte, and because of this issue, which, by the way, PayPal does business in China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia, and they were recently fined for doing business in Iran and Sudan, and yet they can't come to North Carolina. So there's some selective hypocrisy by the corporate elite, the Hollywood elite, the media elite, and the political elite. George Clooney lectured in North Carolina about this rule, and he had just gotten back from Shanghai, China, where, gay and lesbian people would have a very difficult time living a normal life. He didn't have any problem promoting his movie in China.
And they all go to Cuba, don't they?
That in North Carolina. And, yeah, Cuomo is called a boycott of North Carolina a day or two after he got back from Cuba, which this selective hypocrisy and outrage by the big brother is quite unique, and I'm going to call him out on it. But I'm getting some bruises because of it. Because when you lose 450 jobs because of some CEO who is a hypocrite in their application of their outrage is very disturbing, and I don't want to see people lose their jobs.
I only have another minute. Can you list the companies that are boycotting? So I want the country to know they may want to boycott the companies. You got PayPal. Who else?
Really, it's only PayPal and Deutsche Bank has held off on a decision, but there's a tremendous amount of pressure on the NCAA of never bringing a game here again, and some of the professional sports league. They are putting a lot of political pressure based upon this, and on corporations. Corporations are very, very scared of this issue, and they read the national media, and they don't want to get close to it. So there's a lot of corporate peer-to-peer